Lovelies. Welcome to episode 10 of Listen Closely.
2 more to go.
2 more to go. Now, just because we hit 12 doesn't mean we are done for the year. It's just 12's a lot easier to handle than 365.
That is correct.
But we will still, well, it's not really 365 because we don't do it every day, but.
It's like once a week, so it's 52.
Yeah. I might be just a little off, but that's fine. Thank you so much for being patient with us. We had a lot of hiccups. As some of you may know from previous episodes, we were working on the studio. So we've had to move around and we had some audio and technical difficulties, but we are fixing that, and hopefully this one will sound beautiful and amazing like it always kind of does.
So what's funny is I was talking to somebody today, and they said because of all the issues that we've had, that somebody doesn't want us to produce this podcast. Maybe it's somebody at the Pines.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Spoiler alert, we are talking about the Pines Theater.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you knew if you followed all of my social media. And speaking of social media, I just want to real quickly say hi to all my new followers. I actually just posted a question on one of the sites and got a whole bunch new followers. So Hi and welcome. I hope you enjoy it. And from my true and loyal fans,
The OGs.
The OGs from the original very first episode, or very couple first episodes. Hey. Thank you for continuing to support us. And like we said, we are going to be talking about the Pines Theater here in Silsbee.
Yeah.
So also, before we get any further, I just want to real quickly say thank you to the Save the Pines Project. You can find them on Facebook. It is literally Save the Pines Project. And we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Pines. So, do you know how many movie theaters there have actually been here in Silsbee?
I actually do.
All right.
So I'm going to start with the oldest, or the newest to the oldest.
Okay.
So the newest one is obviously the Pines Theater.
Right.
Then before that, you had the Palace Theater. Mm-hmm. And then even before that, you had the Pastime Theater.
Correct.
Yeah.
And do you know two of the most notable managers that we had at the Pines?
So the one that everybody knows, the one that we grew up with, would happen to be Mr. W.S. Rosser. He was there when I was young. And then Mr. Sewitt himself, who was the manager before W.S. Rosser, and actually was W.S. Rosser's boss at one time.
Right. He hired W.S. at the age of 15.
Right.
So that's actually kind of cool that, he kind of passed the torch. And
Yeah.
W.S. was actually just a regular cat. Like, he wasn't hired specifically to run the Pines.
Right.
I want to say he was just a regular, like, custodial, an all-around job. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
He wasn't by no means, I think he worked as the projectionist in the projection room first. And then built his way up to manager and then maintained that for a very long time until 2013 when he officially retired.
I think it was like, I want to say it was either like 50 or 60 years, it seemed like. I don't know. I don't know the exact. Maybe it was 45. Sure. I saw a thing in the paper at one time talking about just him and how long he had been at the Pines.
Right.
Given that he was at the Pines for a long, long time.
Yes.
And
that's the one that I definitely remember.
Right.
I didn't know the past one. But
yes. And if you were a kid and you went to the Pines Theater, especially if you were one of those unruly kids, you knew who W.S. Rosser was.
I'm sure like any unruly kid would know who the manager was regardless.
Right.
So just a little quick facts. The Pines Theater was built in 1948 by the Jefferson Amusement Company. The Pines Theater was built after the Palace Theater burnt down. Mm-hmm. The Palace Theater was actually the Pastime Theater. They just kind of renamed it and kind of revamped it just a little bit.
Right.
Which is why it had a short life, because it was an older building.
Right.
And had some problems. So it did burn down. It was across the street from where the theater stands now. So kind of in our location.
Yeah.
Somewhere in our general location here, there was the Palace Theater.
Right.
The Pines Theater originally seated 1,100 guests.
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy because it's a single screen movie theater, and honestly, it looks about the size of like a typical like Cinemark theater, like just one of those
Right. Yeah.
rooms.
Yeah. Just a one single room theater. Now, also, you have to remember though, it was also a stage theater at one time. So that's not like a big stage theater, but random
Yeah,
plays and stuff like that. Vaudeville is what we called them back in the day.
we called them like you back in your old
No,
days.
you know what I mean. Like back in their day, they called them vaudeville. So you usually have a cast of 5 to 6 people up on stage, and that same cast played numerous characters.
Right.
So
And because the theater was built in 1948, obviously we know that there was during the segregation times.
correct.
So actually, up until 1967, the theater was divided, and the African American customers had to enter from outside on a different door and sit in the balcony area only.
Right.
So
Which is funny because that's actually the best seating in that house.
it really is. Like I had,
I'd rather sit up top than I would
yeah,
at the bottom.
and I mean that's just I like it.
Right.
After desegregation, the balcony was closed and everyone sat in the lower level and came through the main entrance.
Right.
That was until the theater had to close in 2017 due to a horrible storm,
Yeah.
as we know as Harvey.
Yeah.
And that's where we leave it, with Harvey destroying it and the great people at Save the Pines Theater and the Silsbee community trying to work together to reopen it.
Now, a couple years before that, and this is when I worked there, in between the transition, the theater was actually bought by a company called AMC. And I'm sure you've heard of that company. They are a major theater retail across the United States. And they bought the theater, and they actually, so when we were growing up, we got movies there, right? But the movies were always like 2 to 3 weeks after the premiere of the movie. With AMC coming in, you were getting, I mean, they put a lot of work into it. They put a brand new digital projector in there. It had 3D capability. They had all the freshest movies when the premiere was. So they did a great job. It was just Hurricane Harvey wrecked it so much that it was, hey,
Yeah, you couldn't
I'm
save
going
it.
to cut my losses.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just to give you a little history on how that went. But, anyways.
So we're gonna get into a little bit of the ghost stories. I mean, an old building. You
Are there
figure-
ghost stories?
You figure it's an old building. There's got to be at least one.
Yeah.
So there are a couple different ghost stories. Real quickly, I want to mention that we found absolutely no paperwork on any
Yes.
of these. It is all hearsay, but I'm here for it.
Right.
So the first one is that during the actual segregation times, there's two type of stories. One says a young child just simply fell off the balcony and passed away,
Correct.
and another one says that the child was actually pushed.
Right.
It doesn't say who exactly pushed him, whether it was another child, an adult, or anything like that. So don't think we're spreading something.
Right. And you
But-
also have to understand. So when you go up on the balcony, that balcony to me is about what would you say, like probably waist height?
2-3 feet, maybe.
Yeah. So I could understand how somebody would easily fall over it if they weren't being careful.
Right. And as children be children, they do like to
Right.
run, and they happen to
Right.
get a little carried away there.
Yeah.
But that child is supposed to haunt the balcony area,
Yep.
as well as I think some of the lower seating areas. I'm not too sure.
Correct.
The next one is the projection booth.
Mm-hmm.
It is said that a worker passed away inside the theater, inside the projection booth, and he still haunts or watches movies inside the booth, which, I mean, right now he does not, because there's no movies being played, but he is said to have been there.
Right. And to add to that, so this wasn't me. I don't have this story, but a former employee talked to me about this one day, and I don't know if they shared this with you because I don't know if you talked to them, but they were talking to me when I was working there, and they said that one day they were closing up shop, and it was past the final movie, and they walked down into the actual theater, and they turned off all went up, locked the back door and everything, came back up. They were getting prepared to turn off the lights. And when they did, they heard something inside the theater. So they went back in to check it out, and there was a movie playing on the screen. Now it was just like the commercial stuff, but it was funny because the projectionist at the time had turned the actual projection off, so there was no way a movie could be playing. But that's their story. I don't know if it's true or not. Like I said, none of this was written down, so we're just going off what we have been told.
Right.
So,
And there have been plenty of ghost stories from both customers and employees, so this is where we're getting a lot of our accounts.
Right.
The next one was actually messaged to me. It was from a worker.
Mm-hmm.
She said that she saw an old man around even after he died, which I'm assuming she's talking about WS. But
Possibly.
an old man could be our very first manager of the Pines.
Right.
Because if it was before he died,
Right.
I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Now, make the comment, and you made this comment before, that both managers, neither one died inside the theater.
Right. Neither
Okay.
one died there. They just put their heart and soul
Right.
into it, which is why it kind of makes sense that they're still looking after
Right.
what they managed for so long.
Correct.
Which, I mean, if I cared for something
Mm-hmm.
that long, and I mean, I put my heart and soul into it, you can ask the families, both families say that they love that theater.
Well, I know how I'm going to be haunted. Because you put your heart and soul into me.
Oh, Lord. But anyways, back away from him. Both families agree that both men put everything that they had
Correct.
into the theater, and that was
Yes.
their life. And so it makes sense that they would want to check on the building,
Right.
make sure that
Yeah.
everybody's doing right by the building and what they did.
Make sure everybody's doing their job, too.
Right. She said that she did hear about the child ghost, but she had always had an uneasy feeling in the bathroom even before she worked there and heard the stories.
Right.
So before she even heard the stories, before she even worked there, apparently she was just, a regular customer.
Right.
Happened to go to the bathroom, felt really uneasy. When she did work there, though, on several occasions, she thought she saw someone walking behind her and standing somewhere when there was nobody. So that one doesn't really have a who is it person per se. It's just somebody's there. Like she felt
Right.
that really uneasy feeling of I'm being watched.
Right.
Another one said basically the same thing. Her mom also worked at the theater, and she said that her mom had popcorn showing up in areas that she had already cleaned, as we all know. But for each, because they'll do the movies 3 or 4 times a day, depending on how long the movie is. Like you have to clean between the movies. So the mom would be cleaning that popcorn, and then she'd turn around, and there it is again.
So, interesting enough, I'm going to give you a little foresight because if you haven't guessed yet, I actually worked at the Pines Theater. Do you know how they clean the popcorn?
A broom and a dustpan.
So that's one way. So in between
And
each movie,
a vacuum?
no, in between each movie, we'd have to what we called spot clean, which is we'd go through every row. We'd start at the back, go through every row, sweep up into a dustpan, all the popcorn and stuff like that. At the end of the night, they actually use a leaf blower. And they blow, they start at the back and they blow everything all the way to the bottom. And then we get the big rolling trash cans and we pick it up like that. That way we don't miss anything. So just a little side, thing for y'all if y'all didn't know how that worked.
The more you know.
Yeah.
Okay. So this girl also said that the stack machine, she was around that area, what is a stack machine? I don't know movie terms. Like is it just a machine that stacks?
Yeah, like it's the cut machine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So she was near that and in the front, and she heard yelling and or whispering saying, "Don't touch me and leave me alone." So we don't know who was yelling and or telling her to leave me alone or.
Well, and I guess with that, now that that's out, that could be an appropriate time for me to tell my little story on what happened to me while I was working there. So similar conversation. I was going back to check the back because every night we check the back 2 doors just to make sure that they're locked and nobody can get in. So I go back there to check the back 2 doors, and this is so when you walk into the foyer. You go, obviously, if you've been to the Pines Theater, you go into the foyer, then you go into the main theater.
Right.
And then past that, past the screen and everything, there's doors on each side for emergency exits. Um, well, went down there and I heard something coming out of what I lovingly called the boiler room, which is a actual another room past that back door.
Mm-hmm.
So I walk in there to check it out. I've got my mag light. I'm checking out everything, make sure everything's good. As I walk back there, I swear to this day it was real. All I heard was somebody whisper in my ear, "Hey boy," and I'm shining my flashlight, trying to figure out who said that.
And there was nobody.
There's nobody around.
Hmm.
As clear as day, it was said. And so, me being a scaredy cat I am, I decided to move with haste back up to the foyer.
Now,
So,
see, when he says move with haste, normally when he tells the story, he says it took about 5 steps from him to get from the back of the theater to the front of the theater and
That's right.
out the door.
That's right.
Like, that's how quick. And if you've seen a picture of him, I don't know if I've posted any on my Facebooks or Instagrams or anything.
I'm a big old boy.
He's a big dude. Like, you think of, like, those big football guys, like, in those movies. That's basically his build. Like, he's a big dude. So for him to move that quick, and how old were you at the time?
I was around 22, 23.
All right, so past your prime of football
maybe
days.
a little younger.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, around the time,
I had already gained my 60 pounds plus from football. So I was sitting at around 280, 290.
So big old 6 foot?
No, I'm 5'11". My license is not.
License is a lie.
My license says 6 foot, but I have realized that's with shoes on. So I'm 5'11".
We're counting it.
Yeah. But
how many people tell you to take off your shoes when they like get your height? So we're
true.
counting it.
But
6 foot. So back to some other things that these girls had mentioned though, which yours is creepy, but this one's also creepy. One of the girls said that she occasionally saw a man that would dash across the balcony and disappear into the bathroom.
Yes.
And if you do not know, there are bathrooms in the actual balcony.
There is.
Again, during segregation, you had to have separate everything.
Right.
So there actually are bathrooms up there.
So, and in speaking with a lady who we're not gonna name any names, but in speaking with one of the ladies who is a family member of one of the managers, she actually told us that is something that the manager, Mr. Sewitt, loved to do, is actually stand on that balcony and overlook and watch the people watching the movie.
Right. I mean, that's the best place to make sure nobody's doing any funny business.
Right.
Like, everybody's good,
Right.
I mean, it's a good overview of the theater and just the best seat.
It could be, it's possible.
The girl who also had the mother working with her said that the mom heard piano playing during the day when it should have been silent inside the theater.
See, that goes back to that vaudevillian type thing.
Yeah.
With the piano and... crazy.
So, I don't know. I've never experienced anything in there.
Yeah.
But, during that time, I was basically a kid just trying to get some popcorn, a pickle, and a movie.
Yeah. And that's the crazy thing, for a theater, it was always a fun, enjoyable time because if y'all didn't know this, our theater for a long time was relatively cheaper than everybody else. So, like, I remember, even when AMC came in there, you could get a $3.50 movie, or you could, and then back in the day when WS was there and stuff, I remember watching movies for $1.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's crazy considering, and I know we talked about this. What was the money stuff as far as back in the day?
I want to say it was like 5 cents for...
I think it was 9 cents for children.
Somewhere like 10 cents for children, basically, and 25 cents for an adult.
Yeah, that's insane. But yeah, so, and even that, and that was probably, 40, 50 years before, and now, and then it was $1, and then when AMC did it, like $3.50. Now for the premieres, obviously, they charge a little more, but matinees were really awesome. I mean, you could get cheap popcorn and cheap drinks, and it was a great theater to grow up in.
Back in the day, back in the good old days.
Yeah.
Now it's like what's
I think
$8 for a matinees when what we paid
when
just
we went
recently.
and saw Mortal Kombat, I think it was like $8.50.
That's for the matinees. That's the
Yeah.
cheaper prices is $8.50, and then you still have to pay full price for the
Right.
popcorn and
Yeah.
everything else, which is like $8 for a large drink. And,
Right.
Like it's bad.
It's really, yeah.
But hopefully we get our theater back and we get this rolling
Absolutely.
because it means a whole lot to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of first dates there, first kisses, I mean, my first movie I watched was in there. It was actually Twister.
Yeah.
Funny enough, that was me and my dad. We went to go watch Twister.
I can't remember my first movie.
And, another one that I remember is Titanic because, my sister and my cousins crying because Leonardo DiCaprio was, hanging and died, and I thought it was hilarious.
Don't let go, Jack.
And not him dying. Like, him dying was not hilarious, but their reaction to him dying and just crying, and I was just like, are y'all serious right now?
All
Like,
I'm saying is
fine.
2 people could have fit on that door.
I mean, 2 people could have, but comfortably.
Rose was being kind of selfish.
We're not going to go there.
Anyways, but yeah, so, and it was always enjoyable, and the people of Silsbee enjoyed every minute of that theater, and that's what I hope we get back to.
Right, because having it closed is it's just hurtful.
Yes.
And I mean, now the whole country's kind of experienced that because of COVID.
Right.
All the theaters had to shut down. I mean, there was just a total lockdown, and we're just now getting our theaters back in in our areas. So you kind of understand, like, once the theater's gone, like you're kind of lost because you're like, what can I do? I can't do anything. And the theater here is like our main thing to do.
Right.
Like, if even on a hot day, you're like, well, let's just go watch this movie. Well, I've already seen it. Yeah, but it's cool in there.
Right. Well, even and even that, it's kind of, to me, and I've said this before, it's kind of a guide back home because if you don't know, we still have the real big neon pine sign lit up in the front, and I've said this is and it's been dubbed this before, the crown jewel of Silsbee, Texas, because when you're home when you see those lights.
Right.
Like,
and luckily we just got to see those lights turn back on.
Yes.
Which I do have video of them turning on those lights after a while. It's because of the hurricane.
Yeah.
They were off for so long, and I got video of it turning back on.
And just for that, I'd like to go ahead and give a shout out to the Save the Pines Foundation, to Christy and Sonia and Reba and all the men and women who are putting the work in to make sure this theater gets back open, to all the sponsors and supporters. But guys, the work's not done. We got to keep going. Keep donating. Keep sharing those posts. Go to Save the Pines Project and check those guys out, man, because they're always doing something to get our theater rebuilt.
Right.
So.
And we forgot, because we've done this 3 or 4 times, we totally forgot to mention we went ghost hunting in there.
We did.
So, we didn't spend the whole night because I'm a little old and have work, and it just wasn't going to happen.
Right.
But we actually did get to go in and stay a couple hours in there. And we had one of our fine police officers come with us, check out the building just to make sure that everything is safe, that we stay safe, and that we are undisturbed. And just in case the police get called because of flashlights, they would have already known because we told them, hey, we're going to be here and we'll let you know when we're leaving. So that way they understand, like, okay, if we get a call, at 4 o'clock in the morning, it is not me because I'm asleep.
Right. And we want to thank, Silsbee Police Station for doing that for us. We usually try to do that every time we actually go on an adventure like that. But let's talk about the findings. Let's talk about what we...
So first off, that was my first trip to the balcony. So we went to the balcony, which I was amazed because I was like, oh my gosh, I've never been up here. Like, I've never seen that. Like, if you're like me, you never worked there. You never, you're on the younger age range.
Right.
It's like, I will say under 30 or 35. I don't know. Like, you never, like, you knew there was a balcony, and you knew it was closed, and they closed it because I always heard damage or unsafe. So I'm thinking, like, holes in the ground and stuff. And, like, it's a pretty solid floor.
It's a pretty solid floor. There is some underneath structural issues, but so you can't have a lot of people up there. But if 2 or 3 people go up there, they're fine.
Yeah.
Like,
So we went up there. Mind you, I had charged everything like days in advance to
Right.
this. So we go up there, not a big deal, you know, kind of cool. And I'm just in like shock because I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
But then we go into the projection room. In the projection room, I was like, you know what? It's going to be a cool picture if I take a picture from the actual like projection standpoint of like, you know, I'm the camera like projecting out. So I was going
Right.
to take a picture like that. And I go to turn on my camera. It's basically dead. I turn it on like for 5 seconds and it's like, ding, you're dead, bye. And it just quit.
Right.
So I was like, okay, let me try my other camera. Really low battery. I was like, what the heck? Like, I've charged these all day long
Yeah.
for multiple days.
Which,
Brand new, fresh batteries.
as you know, and if you know anything about pulse and EMF and stuff like that, ghosts will actually draw energy from electronics in order to present themselves. So that could have been a possible reason that your cameras were drained.
I mean, maybe.
You never know.
And then we went to underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And because I've watched enough ghost shows,
Yes.
we did a spirit box off of my phone. I'm not saying they work, but I'm not saying
Yeah.
they don't. And we did the what you calls it?
Call out.
Voice recording.
Yeah, the voice recording. Call
EMF.
out, yeah.
We try to cover everything that we could.
Yeah.
Everything that, you know, typical ghost hunters will do, we try to do that.
Yeah.
At one point, y'all thought y'all heard something come across.
So the EMF, you know, obviously with EMF, you check 2 things. Number one, you check the electromagnetic field, but you also, ours actually also reads temperature. And so the temperature didn't really vary much. It stayed between 70 to 71 degrees in there the whole time. It would drop and raise like that 1 degrees.
And then we were getting no EMF readings at all.
Correct. But when we did the ghost box, now, like I said, this is not verifiable. We don't know if we heard what we heard, but what we heard was pretty dang convincible. So at first I tried to do the little boy. And
Or the child. I don't know if it ever said boy or girl.
oh, well, yeah, the child. And so I called out to the child, and through that whole ordeal, we got no response.
I mean, and if you don't know a voice box, like, it's just radio waves that just flip at a
Right.
certain speed. And it should
Right.
be, it's so fast that you shouldn't be able to get one word.
Right.
Like, it flips, I don't remember how many channels per second, but
Yeah.
let's say like 5 channels per second. Like, that's too quick to get an actual one-worded
Right.
response. And for you to get a continuous, like, same voice throughout all the channels,
Right.
that's why people think that's pretty good.
And so we then started calling out to the old managers, and I asked the question: is there anybody in here who ran this theater? And as sure enough, I picked up something over the voice box that basically what it sounded like was I did. And so I was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. So then I asked another question, and usually at this point I'm asking this question to find out whether they're friendly or not. And so I asked the question, do you want us to leave? And at that point, the officer that was with us, I'm not going to name any names to protect the officer, but the officer that was actually with us heard something over the voice box as I did, and the voice box literally said, "Get out." So like I said, it's up to debate what we heard, but
Yeah, because I mean, I heard something and it sounded like a muffled like
Right.
but like I don't know. And I have the recordings, so like I can, you know, take them and
Yeah.
snip out that part so we can kind of leave it to the viewers. But I don't know if I heard like
Yeah.
a full sentence as they did, but it definitely did freak both of y'all out.
And so obviously I killed the investigation at that point, because one of the things we do here is we always respect the dead. And if somebody tells us to leave, that's exactly what we do. So, yeah, I mean, that's what we heard.
But then we also, during that investigation, we also my father, who is also pretty techie
Right.
like us, he had one of those miniature projectors, like a little handheld projector that's kind of cool, by the way. If You can
Yeah.
no free ads, but you can buy it
Yeah.
in certain box retail locations.
Right.
Anyways, he had that, so he was actually shining that onto the screen, which was it kind of tugged at my heartstrings because that's the first
Yeah.
time something had been like shined onto that screen
Right.
since it closed.
Yeah.
So it kind of tugged on me a little bit, but he did that. Unfortunately, we did not like have any movies or anything on it, so it was just like a no signal, blank screen, your typical screen thing. But it's still really cool, and we try to do that to like, if it was like say the projectionist or maybe a child, maybe they'd see like there's something playing. Let's go check it
Right.
out. So we did do that. Didn't really get anything other than me feeling really emotional, all of my feels.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we quickly left. We said thank you to the officer,
Right.
lock her up, and if you get any more calls, it's definitely not us. It
Yeah.
could be a ghost.
That's it.
And then a couple days later, your brother swore he, which one I'm not gonna say, but he swore he saw like something. It was either him or a friend they said that they saw something like through the doors.
Yeah. So actually, no. Justin was driving by,
Yeah.
and he drove by the theater, and he could have swore he saw something come in between the doors of the theater.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and me personally, I actually called the cops out there a couple of days ago because I swore I saw the same thing. And because of it's been shut down for a while, obviously they have had some problems with people getting into the theater and,
Right.
all that kind of stuff. So they do random checks all throughout, the week and stuff like that just to check on it, make sure everything's still locked up tight and everything. But yeah, so
like you don't even have to go into the theater and you
Yeah.
can still possibly see something.
yeah, I mean,
So, that's kind of, ooh.
so is it haunted?
I don't know.
Hmm.
I didn't really get any freaky. Actually, the one time I got that freaky uneasy feeling was during the day when we went.
Right.
Because we went and scoped it out during the day, like when there's still kind of light. So me and you went, and
Yeah.
like that point, I was like, yeah, I don't like this
Yeah.
place. Like it's creepy. I don't know if it was the initial shock of the damage that was in there,
Right.
or what it was, because I've never felt anything in there.
Right.
Except for that point. I felt super creeped out at that one particular time, but when we went back during the night, I felt fine.
Yeah.
Like
And-
I didn't feel creeped out. I didn't feel nothing. So I don't know. Again, I don't know if it was the initial shock of just seeing, my memories of the old theater being beautiful and how it was, and then just seeing it like that. I don't know if it was that, or if there's something kind of creeping me out.
So, and it's up for debate, and that's the big thing, because I don't know if I'm not going to sit here and tell you that something, and that goes with anything we do on the show. I want you to find out for yourself. I don't know if it's haunted or not. I know what has happened to me in my personal life, and I know what stories that we have heard from other people. But everything, and that's the thing about the spiritual side of things, is everything is up for debate.
Right.
So whether or not you see a ghost, whether or not you see an entity, that's completely up to you and your perspective. We're not going to tell you that it's haunted. We're going to tell you that this could possibly be some of the things that are going on from
Right.
stories that we've heard. So, anyways, if you're asking me personally, yeah, I think it is. That's my personal opinion, though.
Right, and you experienced something
Yes,
in there.
because I've
that you can't
experienced.
explain.
Yeah,
Right. But we just want to ask our listeners.
yeah.
Do you know any stories, or have you heard any stories? Have you experienced anything yourself? If you have, you can send me the story. Doesn't matter that I've already covered it. I will tell your stories again, because the Pines is just one of those that we just need to keep talking about.
Right.
So definitely send me your information. You can follow me and send me that information on so many things. Let me see. TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, all at HTT Listen Closely. Super easy.
Super easy.
I mean, there should be no reason you can't find me. I'm not hiding. Then you can also email me, httlistenclosely@gmail.com.
There you go.
And then you can message me if you want me to talk about the Pines again, or if you have maybe another story. I've actually had a couple people tell me different areas within this town as well as other towns that are pretty close by, like, hey, you should cover this. So it's one of those like I go by what people tell me and what I research.
Right.
Unfortunately, research only takes me so far. With like the pines, I could not find anything on it.
Right. Yeah.
So I have to rely solely on people coming to me and telling me stories.
Yeah. And yeah, and so when and during our research, we really didn't find a lot because obviously it's a one stage theater in a very small town, so you won't see a lot about it. But the history is there, and maybe even the ghost. So,
Maybe.
uh, but yeah. Anyways,
That's all we got.
that's all we got.